Okay, I'm going to go over how to install the button repair kit in this Clarity cordless phone. This is model E814CC, and this is a membrane keypad. And this is we take the phone apart, we clean the oils out because these keypads ooze oil. And clean the oil out. Then we put this between the circuit board and the keypad. And when you push down on the original rubber buttons, it pushes down on the membrane keypad, which then completes the switch. This film also blocks oil from getting in the buttons again. So when the keypad continues to ooze oil, it should stop that from happening. It's very easy to install. There's only a few screws. I'm going to take this this belt clip off right here. And then you take the battery door off, and take the batteries out. There's two screws here. You just need a smaller-ish Phillips screwdriver. Take those two out. It's already I could feel it kind of lifting up a little bit. But what we want is a pry tool. And you can use a small flat screwdriver, but if you have a plastic pry tool, it's better because you won't carve up the plastic at all. But if all you have is a metal pry tool, you're really not prying. You get in there and you just kind of slide this up the groove a little bit. So we're never using any force to pry anything apart. You can use that, or this one you might use a credit card or something. Once we've got it up to these buttons here, I'm going to just sort of pull it apart and try to not pull the circuit board up with that. We got the springs for the battery that kind of stick up in there. I want to pull the back housing off. There we go. You don't want to pull on it because there's the speaker here with some wires that are pretty fragile. So I'm just trying to wiggle it and move it a little bit. It pops right off. And as you can see, you can open it kind of like a book. These wires are pretty fragile, so you need to be careful with that. So then there's a couple more screws up here. Take those out. And then at this point, we can take the whole thing out like that. And we got this top housing, which doesn't have anything on it, for circuitry or components. So if you want to, this one's full of like crumbs. So you could take this to the sink and maybe clean it with a toothbrush or warm soapy water, and just make sure you dry it really well. If you do soak it down with water, there's a little like speaker grill here that'll get wet. You might want to dry that up a little bit with a rag or a hair dryer. Then we have the rubber keypad, and usually this one is only bad up the top. I have seen another one where it was just caked with oil, and it's actually oil that seeps out of the rubber. It's not from people think it's from your fingers or the environment. It's actually out of the rubber, and since these are such a huge amount of rubber, they have a lot more oil. And every time you push a button, you squeeze out just a micro drop of oil. So we need to clean the circuit board up good. This isn't too bad, but if it was bad, like crumbs and oily, I would take it right to warm water and soap at the sink and wash it, maybe toothbrush, and then just let it dry off good, shake it off, let it dry before you put it back in the phone. So you probably want to do that first. This one isn't too bad, so I'm just going to put some isopropyl alcohol on a rag and clean those top buttons up. So we don't want the oil in there messing things up any more than it's already doing. It's going to make more oil in the future, but we want to get rid of what's there. Sometimes it gets so bad I've seen oil like actually drip and ooze and pile up around the microphone. It's not too common, but the other thing we need to do, we absolutely must clean the circuit board. There's no sense of putting a new keypad over a dirty circuit board. So we got to clean clean this up as good as we can. You can't really hurt anything with isopropyl alcohol except for the microphone. Don't get that soaking wet. You know, if you touch it, oops, that's okay, but you wouldn't want to like drip it on there or anything like that. The plastic over the display is just sort of sitting there. That also is going to be dirty. Probably you could clean that up. So make sure I get all that oil off, and you can kind of touch it with a dry finger. You go like that. If it feels, you know, like sticky or kind of like dragging, a little bit down here because I don't think I cleaned that well. Yeah, that's much better. Okay, so after we've got that cleaned, now this just goes down there. Now you could theoretically put this in upside down, which would make none of the buttons work. So you want to kind of look there. It's the black dots are dull, and this way it's all shiny. So we want the dull side with the spacer to go down on the circuit board contacts like that. There we go. And there's holes cut out for these little LEDs, notch for the microphone. So that's really doesn't move very much when you get it in there. And while we're putting it back together, we want to make sure it doesn't like get way out of place or anything, but it's not that hard. So after we've got our keypad cleaned up and dried, you just put that down on top of there like that. And if you've got any fingerprints or there's dust on your screen, you can clean that off. Or if you have an air duster, canned air for cleaning things, use that. Okay. And then we just kind of put the top housing over this, because if we tip this over, the rubber keypad's just going to start to fall out and everything. So I'm going to start it like this and then put it down like that. Okay. Make sure the microphone and everything is in there's a slot down here where the microphone goes. That looks good. Okay, so we can put those two screws at the top back in. And again, just be really careful with that red wire to the speakers. Okay, so now when we're putting the back housing on, these battery springs got to go in there. There's little slots. And just kind of look there. Okay, it's gone in and it's lined up. Once you got it pretty lined up, then you can just start snapping the housing back together. And you might want to test it at this point. Well, there's only 2 screws, so it's not a big deal. So put those 2 screws back in. And then I'll go get some batteries. Okay. Batteries in there. Cover. You can see the buttons all work really good. That's it. All the buttons should work great from now on, and you shouldn't have problems down the road in the future with when more oil leaks out of that rubber keypad. Thanks.